When many people think of ancient Egypt, they often envision pyramids, mummies, hieroglyphs, the Nile River, or graceful cat sculptures. However, this intriguing and distinct period of history has much more to offer. In the video today, we will look into some of the most unusual practices of the ancient Egyptians. Number 25. Baboons assisting in apprehending criminals. You might know that ancient Egyptians held cats in high regard. However, did you realize they also respected baboons? To them, these animals were like the police force. It is said that Egyptian officials had baboons on leashes and would set them loose on thieves or other wrongdoers. In various ancient artworks and hieroglyphs, such as a fragment from the Old Kingdom, dating back to the 5th dynasty, approximately 2498 to 2345 BC, baboons are portrayed as apprehending criminals, biting them or grabbing them by the leg. Moreover, these animals were taught to gather fruit, make beer, or perform dances. They were held in such high regard in Egyptian society that their likenesses appeared as tattoos on the skin of certain mummies. Number 24. Offering and preserving crocodiles through mummification. Archaeologists in Egypt have uncovered not only mummified human remains, but also crocodile mummies. These reptiles were preserved differently than humans in some cases. For instance, in the year 2019, digging at an undisturbed tomb in the Kubet El Hawa necropolis on the west bank of the Nile revealed 10 crocodiles mummified without resin, which is typically used in the mummification process. Well-preserved crocodile mummies are not uncommon for researchers. It is thought that the ancient Egyptians considered these creatures as sacred gifts, serving as nourishment for those in the afterlife, or aiding in the resurrection of specific gods. Crocodiles were mainly linked to Sobek, the deity of water and the floods of the Nile. Number 23. Applying bull hooves, ash, burnt eggshells, and pumice for dental care. The ancient Egyptians cared about fresh breath. They powdered bull hooves, ash, and burnt eggshells using pumice. This powder was applied to their teeth and gums to avoid dental issues. This approach is thought to have been quite effective, particularly in terms of mechanics. Nevertheless, when looking at overall health, it likely wasn't very helpful since it frequently led to considerable gum bleeding. At different times, Egyptians made use of a mix of pepper, iris, blossoms, and rock salt. Remarkably, they were some of the earliest to create toothbrushes, which were known as chewing sticks. They created these tools using twigs, with one end functioning as a toothpick and the other as a brush. Egyptians also invented their own kind of breath fresheners using boiled herbs and spices like frankincense or cinnamon, combined with honey, which could be chewed or sucked on. Number 22. The affection Egyptians had for these creatures was serious. They thought that cats brought good fortune to their owners, which is why they treated them with great respect. Their love for cats was so strong that when one passed away, all family members would shave their eyebrows as a way to show they were in mourning and would stay sad until their eyebrows grew back. Number 21. Soaking in sour milk. Ancient Egyptians, such as Cleopatra, used sour milk, usually from donkeys, for bathing to enhance their skin's look and health. Nowadays, we understand that sour milk has lactic acid, a natural alpha-hydroxy acid. These acids assist in eliminating dead skin cells from the outer layer and encourage the development of new, more evenly colored skin. It is said that for Cleopatra, a total of 7,000 donkeys were required for her daily baths to supply sufficient milk. At least she made sure it was used effectively. Number 20. Healing wounds with moldy bread. As noted, the ancient Egyptians were quite innovative, and their practice of using moldy bread to treat wounds might appear odd. In truth, this approach was effective and can be seen as an early form of penicillin and other contemporary antibiotics. This technique was effective because the mold found on bread typically belonged to a kind of fungus that released compounds preventing or eliminating bacterial growth near wounds, scrapes, or other types of injuries. Number 19. A woman pharaoh sported artificial beards. Hatshepsut was a pharaoh of Egypt during the 18th dynasty. The challenge she faced was her gender. Female pharaohs, of which there were only a handful, were not regarded as seriously as males. While ancient Egypt was recognized for offering some equality to women, this did not extend to those in power. Hatshepsut chose to take control of her situation and started wearing long beards in the traditional Egyptian style to look more like a man. In numerous artworks, she is frequently illustrated with a false beard. Number 18. Kids wearing pouches containing mouse bones around their necks. In the past, people thought that bones from rodents could heal and assist kids in overcoming illnesses. For instance, when a child became sick, the mother would consume a mouse and then put the bones in a tiny cloth bag secured with 7 knots. This pouch would be worn around the child's neck as a protective charm. Some believe that less well-off families used a similar approach to help with bedwetting in their children. Number 17. Storing internal organs in canopic jars. Canopic jars were used to hold and protect the internal organs of the dead during the mummification process, and they were interred with the body. Each jar served a specific function. One held the lungs, another the liver, the third stored the intestines, and the fourth contained the stomach. The heart was left in the body, as it was believed to be the center of the soul. At first, these jars were plain and uncomplicated, but over time, they became more intricate and came to represent 4 deities known as the sons of Horus. Hapi had the head of a baboon and held the lungs. Duamutef had the head of a jackal and safeguarded the stomach. Imseti had a human head and looked after the liver, while Kebehsenuef had the head of a falcon and protected the intestines. Number 16. It is claimed that a certain pharaoh governed for 90 years. As the story goes, King Pepi II ruled for an astonishing 90 years, making him the longest reigning king of ancient Egypt. He became king at the age of 6 and reportedly lived into his 90s. He governed in the 6th dynasty. Yet, numerous current Egyptologists question this detail and think he may have ruled for merely 64 years. If that's true, he would be the second longest reigning pharaoh following Ramesses the Great, who ruled for more than 66 years in the 19th dynasty. Number 15. Enhanced tattoo culture. Currently, tattoos appear quite normal to us, which might be why we frequently forget that they held great importance in ancient Egypt. Archaeologists have found tattooed mummies from the 11th dynasty, as well as images of women from that time adorned with tattoos made up of dots and spirals on their lower chests, abdomens, and thighs. Many historians think that these tattoos offered protection and strength during pregnancy and childbirth. It is believed that only women of higher status received tattoos. As time went on, tattoo designs grew more intricate and frequently looked like images of gods, serving as a form of reverence. The process of tattooing had a ceremonial aspect and started with making a unique brush from an odd number of needles, usually 3, 7, or 9. These needles were bound together and the brush was soaked in charcoal, soot, or indigo powder. It was then used repeatedly to pierce the skin. Both soot and indigo possessed antiseptic qualities that aided in blocking infection. Once the tattoo was finished, different herbs and oils were used on the skin to support healing and ensure the color stayed vibrant. Number 14. Utilizing bread and beer as a form of money. As stated before regarding baboons making beer, the Egyptians loved this drink deeply. They valued it so highly that they used it, along with bread, as money for trading. It was thought that both bread and beer were important in offerings to their gods and to their ancestors who had passed away. Some believe that the soldiers and approximately 10,000 laborers who constructed the pyramids were compensated with bread and beer for their efforts. The Egyptians cherished these items so much that when the Nile overflowed or there was a shortage of grain, they viewed it as a sign that the gods were unhappy. Number 13. Constructing restrooms in burial sites. To honor the deceased, ancient Egyptians placed toilets in their tombs. They believed that those who have passed away continue to exist in a different realm and still require the same necessities as when they were alive, such as food, water, and bathroom facilities. Number 12. Hiding the pharaoh's hair. The hair of the pharaoh was viewed as holy and was never to be exposed. As a result, leaders frequently donned a crown or a headpiece known as a nems. This type of attire set them apart from ordinary individuals who were prohibited from wearing such head coverings. Number 11. Sporting sandals that display the faces of foes. King Tutankhamun purposely wore sandals that had the faces of his enemies on the bottoms, allowing him to figuratively walk on them. More than 80 pairs of shoes were discovered in his tomb, with one sandal showing an African captive on its inner sole, while the other featured an Asian captive. These individuals symbolized the foes of Tutankhamun's realm. Number 10. Making hieroglyphs that do not include vowels. Hieroglyphs had around 2,000 symbols, but they only included consonants and lacked vowels. As a result, we will never be able to determine precisely how the ancient Egyptians pronounced their words. Some sources suggest that a version of the letter E was sometimes used. Nevertheless, hieroglyphs remain one of the oldest writing systems in human history. Number 9. The Egyptians viewed the scarab as a holy symbol. The scarab genus currently encompasses more than 30,000 species of beetles around the globe. The ancient Egyptians thought that scarabs possessed remarkable powers of regeneration. They believed that the tiny beetle followed the sun's journey, similar to the way the sun traverses the sky, delivering light and warmth. The scarab rolls its dung ball filled with eggs from east to west until fresh life emerges from it. The image of this insect is often found in artwork and jewelry. Scarabs were linked to the deities Khepri, representing the rising sun, Atum, symbolizing the setting sun, and Ra, the embodiment of the sun. Number 8. Crafting fly swatters using giraffe tails. This instance is very straightforward. Ancient Egyptians crafted fly swatters using giraffe tails. These items were practical and seen as fashionable. Their efficiency makes sense, as giraffes and various animals utilize their tails to swipe insects off their bodies. Number 7. Having uncommon pets. We've mentioned how much the Egyptians admired cats and baboons. They also had a variety of other animals like hawks, ibises, lions, gazelles, and monkeys. In addition to cats, they kept domesticated dogs, which are still popular pets today. In ancient Egypt, dogs mainly assisted with hunting or protecting. The types of dogs found in ancient Egypt included greyhounds, salukis, mastiffs, and dachshunds. Number 6. Interring pharaohs alongside miniature figures of their servants. In the early times of ancient Egypt, servants were laid to rest with pharaohs. Eventually, this custom changed to include numerous tiny figures known as ushabti. These small statues were placed in the tomb with the pharaoh, based on the belief that they would carry out the tasks the ruler preferred to avoid in the afterlife. Even the ushabti were preserved through mummification, as they were intended to journey to the afterlife as well. These figurines depicted different occupations, such as soldiers, farmers, cooks, brewers, fishermen, or boatmen. and they typically grasped the tools essential for their trades. Within each tomb, a spell was inscribed to animate the figurines. This was the sixth spell from the Book of the Dead, which stated, O Ushabti, if the departed is summoned for any task in the land of the dead, whether it is farming, watering the ground, or transporting sand from east to west, perform it on his behalf. Number 5. The idea that the tears of the goddess Isis overflowed into the Nile River. The ancient Egyptians thought that the Nile River overflowed every year because the goddess Isis wept for her slain husband Osiris. They believed her tears were a sign of her sorrow and her desire to reassemble his body. In the time of floods, Egyptians honored the Night of Tears, gliding on vibrant boats down the river, singing praises to their deities and presenting offerings to the water. This celebration continues to be observed today, mainly as a way to pay homage to history and the broader Egyptian heritage. Number 4. Wearing thongs for safety. Some historians think that in ancient Egypt, individuals, particularly men, wore thongs to help stop the spread of illnesses during intimate situations. Hieroglyphs indicate that men donned light fabrics to shield their lower bodies from the sun and tropical diseases during conflicts, as well as to fend off evil spirits. It is believed that the fabrics were colored in different hues to make them more appealing and alluring. This practice is seen as a way to honor the deity associated with reproduction and fertility. Number 3. Regular instances of incestuous relationships. Cleopatra is a great illustration. People think her parents were siblings, and she married both of her brothers, although she did not have kids from these unions. This practice was common to keep the bloodline pure. It is said that Isis and Osiris, whom we discussed earlier, were siblings who married to safeguard their family's strength. When you examine the family trees of pharaohs, you'll find numerous marriages among siblings and even between parents and their kids. As is known today, this often resulted in significant developmental issues in children. For instance, King Tut suffered from a foot deformity that affected his ability to move and had speech problems resulting from a cleft palate. Other pharaohs experienced various developmental irregularities, like Froelich's syndrome, linked to high levels of inbreeding among royal families. This practice persisted until the last native Egyptian pharaohs came to power. Number 2. Conditions for servants to be covered in honey. Pepi Tiki, previously mentioned, was recognized as a quite strict leader. It might be due to him taking the throne at a young age, but whatever the cause, he seemed to believe he was quite remarkable, perhaps even more than other pharaohs. He disliked flies and insisted that his servants be coated in honey, which was meant to keep the bugs away from him. Pepi II was recognized for other odd actions as well. At one point, he instructed Harkhuf, the leader of Aswan and head of an expedition to Nubia, to capture a pygmy and bring him to the court to entertain the king with a dance. It is important to mention that Pepi's dislike for flies did not represent how other Egyptians felt about these insects. In fact, because of their quickness and determination, flies were greatly appreciated. Soldiers who displayed remarkable bravery in combat were awarded golden flies as a form of honor. The first step is to cloak the deceased with extensive layers of cloth. Here's a captivating fact. Mummification did not originate with the ancient Egyptians. It actually began with South Americans. It is thought that they practiced it 2,000 years prior to the first mummification in Egypt. The Egyptians aimed to keep the bodies of the dead intact for use in the afterlife. The entire procedure was intricate, requiring precision and careful measurements at each stage. One part of the process involved wrapping the body in cloth, which was longer than 1 mile. In ancient Egypt, not everyone could become a mummy and enter the afterlife. This was a special rite of the rich. After the body was dried and wrapped, it was put into a stone sarcophagus. These sarcophagi were frequently adorned with carvings or paintings, and inside you would often find special items like jars, figurines, or even mummified animals. That's all from me for the moment. If you enjoyed the video, please remember to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and activate notifications. Your support means a lot to me. Thank you for watching. Until next time, take care. Goodbye.